Well, the survey was conducted by the Economist Intelligence Unit and the educational company Pearson. And joining me now is Sir Michael Barber, who is the Chief Education Advisor to Pearson. So, Sir Michael, tell us then about the countries right at the top. Finland and South Korea, two very different approaches to education, but both do very well.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me just say something about what we've done here. We've built a data set which looks at all the educational inputs, things like class size and funding, all the education outputs, how much children are learning, how many graduate, how good literacy is in the country, and then the connection between those things and social outcomes like economic growth or the quality of a society. And that database is called the learning curve, and people can explore it. And through that, we're able to look at which countries have come top in the ranking of educational performance, which takes account of their performance in educational benchmarking exercises and their graduation rates and literacy. And as you say, Korea and Finland are very, very different countries, but they have two things in common. One is they really focus on getting great people to come into teaching. They train those people well. They make sure that when teachers start teaching, they keep getting better day after day because the school day and the school is organised to keep their learning improving. And so that's one thing they have in common. The second thing they have in common is a culture that puts a high value on education, which sees education as a key part of the country becoming successful economically and socially.
But another thing they have in common is lots of money. And if you're a developing country looking at this league table, you might think, well, if we had the education budgets of Finland and South Korea, we'd be able to do something pretty stunning as well.
Korea in 1960 had the same GDP as Ghana. It made a decision to get good people into teaching, have large classes, and so in a way it paid for teachers' salaries by having larger classes. It pursued that through, and it now matches the Western European countries in income. Singapore was a very poor country in 1965. Now it exceeds many European countries in income. So this is a task that can be done over a 10, 20, 30-year period. And you're right, developing countries need to get started. They need to make sure they are getting teachers, that those teachers show up every day, have good lesson plans, can make some progress, and then build from there. And the strategy is as important as having the money.
Yeah, I just wondered, did you not have any concerns, though, about the life of school children in these highly competitive countries like South Korea and Japan, for instance, where kids are in school for long hours? In many cases, they are being tutored for hours as well after school. Did you not have any qualms about that?
Yes, and not only do I have qualms about that, so do the leaders in some of those countries. So if you look at what the Prime Minister of Singapore said on National Day at the end of August in Singapore, he basically took on the tiger mums of Singapore and said, yes, we want education, your children to do well in education, but they need to become creative, they need to prepare for the 21st century economy. It's not all about preparing for tests and exams. So the leaders of those countries are indeed taking on exactly the issue that you raise. In a report that I published just over a month ago called Oceans of Innovation, it goes precisely into that issue and has a forward from the Singapore Prime Minister debating the very point that you just raised.
Well, we've talked a lot about the top end. I just wonder if what you would pull out, I mean, I've got the whole list of the top 40 in front of me. Are there countries which are really punching above their weight, countries that perhaps, don't have big education budgets, but are really, doing something impressive?
Well, to get into our data set, there has to be a certain quality of data. So the EIU, the Economist Intelligence Unit that put this together, set high criteria to get in. So some countries don't get in on data quality grounds. But I think what you see is that the Asian countries where they've got, on the whole, attractive propositions for teachers and cultures that value education, those countries are punching above their weight. And you see some other countries that would be thinking, we'd like to have the challenge and the problems that they have in Asia. President Obama, not long ago, visited Korea, and he asked the Korean president, what's your biggest problem? And the Korean president said, my biggest problem is the pressure parents put on the education system, to which the President of the United States said, that's a nice problem to have.
Okay, Michael Barber, thanks very much for joining us. And this story, if it interests you, this story is written up on our website as well, where we're particularly looking at the top 20 and some of the lessons of what those countries are doing well and what actually is the common ground between them. So that is the Learning Curve, the survey on global education that's just come out.